Predicting where a series is going based only on the first episode is a nearly impossible task. Just check out my review of Dr. Stone. I actually thought this guy was a main character, because he was so heavily focused on in the pilot. Turns out he's really not. Like, at all. And while spouting nonsensical theories might be entertaining for me, I don't think it's nearly as entertaining or insightful for those watching my videos. Might explain why my latest outings haven't brought in that many views. But making essays in which I revisit the opening episodes of shows I've already seen, I think that could be interesting for all of us. I can pick up on things I wouldn't have known to look for upon my first viewing. I can see how individual pieces fit into the broader narrative. And if I'm doing that, I might as well begin with the most popular titles, according to myanimelist.com. Not sponsored by them, maybe I could be, someday, if this video gets popular enough. That's how these things work, right? Name drop a site, service, or product, say it's the greatest thing you've ever used, pledge your eternal soul to... Anyway, these videos are going to be riddled with series spoilers, so the more popular the anime is, the better. It means more people can watch them without having their lives irreparably damaged. And for today's topic, I'm covering Death Note, the #1 anime on my anime list, boasting nearly 2.3 million members on the site, and a score of 8.62 out of 10. Not bad. Death Note opens with a world very similar to our own. Criminals roam the streets. Innocent people are assaulted and murdered every day, and these are things our protagonist Light is fully aware of. He sees the news, reads the paper. Things feel more grounded. For a show that only gets progressively darker, this is a nice, natural way to start things off. A lot of anime go overboard in portraying how innocent and naive our main characters are, to the point of feeling cheesy and fake. But Light understands that there is evil all around him. He even possesses some of it. The death god Ryuk tells him as much.
But if you did that, it would make you the only bad person left.
Of course, this isn't to say Light is initially evil. Odds are, the Death Note influences that, or at a bare minimum, amps up existing desires and feelings he already has. After all, he wasn't chosen by Ryuk. The Shinigami tells him he acquired the Death Note by chance. It didn't sense anything different in him, it's just a book, and yet he still picks it up and uses it.
I wasn't ready to believe it at first, but it's obvious now. There's something about the Death Note itself that makes humans want to try it out at least once.
And this all makes sense, as the first two people Light kills actually affect him. He's riddled with guilt. Sure, it's short-lived, but it's still there. A similar shift can be seen in the series when Light gives up his Death Note and loses all his memories of his alternate persona Kira. Suddenly, his belief that the ends justify the means is gone. He's a much more caring person.
As much as I want to help you, and as important as the Kira case is to me, I can't manipulate a woman's feelings like that. Please try to understand. To me, exploiting another person's feelings for personal gain is unforgivable, and I won't allow myself to stoop that low.
Maybe it's just the godlike power that corrupts him. How's that saying go again? Absolute power corrupts absolutely? Light could have had a very different life had he never picked up and used the book. But regardless of what triggers his ruthless sense of justice, regardless of whether or not the world he eventually creates is a better place, it would be hard to call the Light we get by the end of this episode a good person. He notices the bullies at his school. He sees this guy complaining about his mom being late to pick him up. And what's his response?
Once you actually start looking around, it makes you wonder if you'd be doing society a favor by getting rid of all these people.
On some level, I do believe he's aware of this darkness that's corrupting him. That contradiction Ryuk mentions earlier, even if he can't openly acknowledge it. He believes he's the only one who can do what's required, but fully expects this will mean the loss of his soul. That's why he keeps his room dark. He knows he's doing something wrong and, at least on a psychological level, wants to hide his crimes from prying eyes, like those of his mother.
Why on earth is it so dark in your room?
Ah, the wonders of symbolism. Not sure if you know this, but I really like to explore the hidden meanings of things. Perhaps too much. A teacher once told me I needed to stop finding significance where it wasn't intended. That could very well be true, but I do think most of what's in here is in fact intentional. especially the religious elements. One of the first images we see is of a shackled Light reaching for an apple from Ryuk. He's been prevented by the limitations of humanity from doing anything about the evils around him. This metaphoric fruit, this death note, will allow him to overcome those limitations and change the world. It's also a clear reference to the famous creation of Adam painting, in which God gives Adam life. The apple itself has another meaning as well. It represents the forbidden fruit from the Bible. When Light takes a bite out of it, he is falling from grace. The red of Light's eyes in the end sequence that then spreads to his hair and clothing symbolizes his transition from simply observing evil to openly partaking in it. The flashes between his old and new selves reiterate this fact, but it should also be noted that he's smiling. He feels more full of color, more alive, more driven by purpose.
Why even bother? What are you trying to achieve by passing judgment on them? I mean, why do you care?
Because I've been bored too. I want the world to know of my existence, that there's someone out there passing righteous judgment on the wicked.
And we don't just get visual examples of foreshadowing in here. We get blatant dialogue referencing where the series is going and how it will end.
So then, you're saying I can use the Death Note all I want and I won't be punished?
You will feel the fear and pain known only to humans who've used the notebook. And when it's your time to die, it will fall on me to write your name in my Death Note.
Even his name is significant. Light. You know what other biblical figure's name means light? More specifically, light bringer? Lucifer. Light is the devil reborn. It's why we see him pictured before a cruel-looking angel in the opening. Lucifer himself was an angel. Kind of mixed up symbols here. Is he meant to parallel Adam? Lucifer? Maybe it doesn't matter, as both end up failing to choose the right path. In typical anime fashion, we also get a lot of references to characters and plot lines that haven't been introduced yet. We see Light's father and his criminal task force standing in a line. We see Misa, the future owner of the series' second Death Note, and Light's most avid supporter, crying. We see Naomi holding the dead body of her fiancé Ray, an innocent FBI agent Light later kills to discourage further investigations into his identity. We see L's mysterious associate. We see Light standing on a chessboard, followed by a showdown between him and L, a man who's clearly meant to be his mental opponent. It's not so obvious here, but I like the way these characters are differentiated physically. L is hunched, with messy hair, poor social skills, and an obsession with sweets, while Light is well-groomed and a good conversationalist. Finally, I really like the overly dramatic way in which Light writes down the names of his victims. Animation has this amazing way of making the most mundane of tasks engaging to watch, but this takes the art form to a whole new level. Between the orchestral music, zooming camera, intercut scenes of criminals dying, and the conductor-like way in which Light moves his hands, we can really feel the protagonist's determination and drive shine through. He is conducting the world and reshaping it into something new, something grand.
It'll be a new world, free of injustice and populated by people who I've judged to be honest, kind, and hardworking.
Overall, this episode's great, and it does a phenomenal job of briefly introducing the themes that will be explored throughout this series. Justice, morality, the corrupting influence of power, whether or not positive outcomes can ever justify evil acts. It's fun to revisit something I loved in high school, and I'm glad to see it still holds up. There's a lot more to this episode than I originally realized. There were all these clues I didn't know to look for going in, and I got to overanalyze the rest. It's a solid opening to a solid show that, unfortunately, starts to fall off after L's death and... Anyway, these are just some of my thoughts on this show. Feel free to civilly discuss Death Note down below, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.